It was a quiet neighborhood, the kind of street where everyone knew each other by name. Children played on the sidewalks, old men watered their lawns, and no one ever locked their doors during the day. But everything changed when Karen moved in. She arrived in a loud, shiny SUV with tinted windows. Her music shook the street. The moving truck came late at night, and workers banged furniture through the front door past midnight. No one said anything. Not yet. From his small porch, Ethan watched silently. He had lived on that street for over 25 years. He didn't smile much, but people respected him. He kept his house clean, his yard trimmed, and he never caused trouble. He had seen people come and go. But Karen was different. On her first morning, Karen screamed at the mailman for folding her magazine. Later, she yelled at an old woman for walking her dog too close to her fence. By the third day, she had already called the city about her neighbor's tree branches. Still, no one said a word, except Ethan. He approached her gate slowly one evening as she was unpacking boxes in the driveway. "Evening," he said calmly. Karen turned with a sigh. "What?" Ethan looked her in the eyes. His voice was firm but not angry. "This neighborhood is peaceful. People respect quiet here. It's been that way a long time." Karen rolled her eyes. "You people need to relax." He didn't blink. "I'm warning you, some things don't like noise." She laughed in his face. "What are you, some ghost whisperer?" Ethan didn't smile. "You'll see." And he walked away. That night, Karen threw a party. Cars lined the street. Loud music shook windows. Laughter echoed past 2 a.m. Beer bottles were left on neighbors' lawns the next morning. The whole block was upset. But no one said anything. Except Ethan. He left a note on her door. "Last one who disrespected the quiet never made it to winter." Karen held the note and scoffed. She filmed a video for her social media, mocking Ethan. "Look at this old weirdo threatening me. What is this, some horror movie?" She didn't know people were watching. She didn't know some things were listening. 3 nights later, strange things started happening. Karen woke up to find her porch light shattered, her garbage cans knocked over. She blamed kids. Then her dog stopped barking. That night, she heard scratching sounds on the back door. When she ran outside, no one was there. But the backyard gate was wide open. She installed a motion sensor light the next day. It flashed on and off all night. Ethan watched from his window. Karen tried to fight back. She shouted at shadows, set traps, yelled at neighbors, but nothing worked. Then, a letter arrived. No stamp, no name, just 3 words written in shaky black ink. "You were warned." Karen stormed across the street and banged on Ethan's door. He opened it slowly, not surprised. "You think this is funny?" she shouted, holding up the note. Ethan looked at it, then at her. "I told you," he said quietly. "Some things don't like noise." She stepped back. "You're sick." He didn't argue. "Just be quiet, before it gets worse." And he closed the door. That night, everything changed. At exactly 3:14 a.m., Karen's power went out. Her phone, battery, fully charged, dropped to 0. Her backup flashlight flickered and died. Then she heard it. Footsteps, slow, dragging, coming from her attic. She locked her bedroom door and called 911 on her landline. But the line was dead. She tried to scream, but something pressed against her window. She pulled the curtain aside. No one was there. But on the glass, written in fog, were the words, "Still too loud." Morning came. Karen's front yard was a mess. Plants torn out, mud everywhere. Her front door wide open. She came outside trembling, her eyes red from no sleep. The neighbors stared but said nothing. Only Ethan spoke. "You still think I'm joking?" he asked from his porch. Karen didn't answer. She just went back inside and locked the door behind her. For the first time since moving in, the street was silent. but it was already too late. After the night of the footsteps and the foggy message, Karen didn't open her curtains for 3 days. The loud woman who once shouted at everyone now stayed silent, but the neighborhood had already noticed. Whispers started. Small groups of neighbors began talking in low voices by the mailboxes and under their porches. "Did you hear what happened at Karen's house? She says someone broke in, but there's no sign of it." Someone. Or something. Karen watched them from behind her blinds. She could feel their eyes. She didn't like it, but she feared something else even more. Ethan. Ethan didn't visit her again. He simply continued with his quiet routine, watering his plants, feeding the birds, sitting on his porch with a warm mug in his hand. But Karen couldn't ignore the strange energy around him. It was as if he knew something she didn't. Something dangerous. One night, she decided to prove it. She waited until 2 a.m. dressed in black and slipped across the street. She crept into Ethan's backyard. The moonlight barely lit the path, and the silence made her heart pound louder than her footsteps. She found a small shed near the back corner of his yard. It was old, rusty and locked with a heavy chain. Karen didn't care. She picked up a nearby brick and smashed the lock. Inside the shed, she found dusty boxes filled with strange things, old books, broken picture frames, black candles, and one wooden box, labeled "Keep Quiet." Karen opened it. Inside were newspaper clippings, missing people, all from the same neighborhood, all gone without a trace. Dates going back 25 years, one every 3 to 4 years. And in one of the oldest photos, she saw something that made her breath stop. A young Ethan, standing in the background at a candlelight memorial. Next to him was a woman, the same woman who used to live in Karen's house. The next morning, Karen stormed to Ethan's porch holding the newspaper in her hand. "You knew her, didn't you?" she yelled. "The woman who used to live in my house." Ethan looked at her, calm as always. "She didn't listen either," he said. Karen felt her chest tighten. "What do you mean?" Ethan stood slowly. "Some houses hold memories. Others hold things far worse." Karen stepped back. "You're crazy." He didn't blink. "Tell that to the ones who disappeared." That night, Karen stayed up with coffee and a kitchen knife by her side. She had installed 4 security cameras around the house, one on each corner. At 1:38 a.m., the backyard camera turned off. At 1:39, the front camera shut down. At 1:40, the side cameras flickered and froze. Karen looked at the screen and saw a dark figure standing still near her bedroom window. It wasn't a man. Its head tilted unnaturally to the side. Its limbs were long and thin, barely human. And even though it wasn't moving, its shadow twitched. Karen screamed and ran outside, but there was no one there. Just a small note on the ground. "You are the noise." The next morning, Karen ran, door to door, begging for help. Most neighbors closed their doors. Some told her to leave them alone. Only one man answered her fully, an old man named Mr. Harlow, who had lived on the street even longer than Ethan. He invited her in and poured her tea with shaking hands. "You should have listened to him," he whispered. "Ethan doesn't lie." Karen leaned forward. "What is it? What's happening?" Mr. Harlow looked out the window nervously. "There's something about this land. Long before the houses were here, the land was silent, sacred. But one day, people moved in, cut down trees, built homes, made noise." Karen asked, "And?" Mr. Harlow continued. The silence fought back. He told her stories of a boy who played loud music late at night, found floating in the pond the next morning, a woman who shouted at the sky every night after her husband died, gone within a week, a family that threw wild parties, left everything behind one night and vanished. "All of them lived in your house," Mr. Harlow said. Karen's hands were shaking. "Why mine?" "It's the center," he whispered. It hears everything. That night, Karen packed her bags. She booked a hotel in the next town, but when she tried to drive away, her car engine died at the end of the street. She tried calling a cab. No drivers accepted the request. She tried her phone. No signal. She looked back at Ethan's porch. He was sitting there, watching, not smiling, just waiting. Karen sat in her dead car, frozen in fear. The engine wouldn't start. The streetlights flickered above her. The only sound was her own breathing. She looked at her phone again. No signal. Even the car radio played nothing but quiet static. The world around her had gone. Silent. She stepped out of the car and looked back at her house. A strange cold wind blew through the street. The air felt heavy, as if something unseen was watching her every move. Suddenly, her porch light turned on by itself. The front door slowly creaked open. Karen's heart raced. She didn't want to go back, but she had no choice. As she stepped into the house, the door slammed shut behind her. She ran to it, but it was stuck. Locked from the outside. "Hello?" she screamed. "Is anyone there?" No answer. Only silence. The lights began to flicker. Then the hallway light turned off completely. She backed away slowly, heart pounding in her ears. Suddenly, the TV in the living room turned on, showing only static. Then, a voice, deep and distant, came from the speakers. Too much noise. Karen dropped to her knees, covering her ears. "I'm sorry," she cried. "I'll be quiet." But the voice kept whispering. "You are the noise. You brought it back." Desperate, Karen ran upstairs. She shut herself in the bedroom and locked the door. She grabbed her phone, hoping for a miracle. To her surprise, one bar of signal appeared. Quickly, she dialed 911. "Hello, hello? Please help me. Something is in my house," she screamed. The voice on the other end was calm. "What's your name?" "Karen. I live on Brookfield Street. Please send someone." A long pause. Then the voice asked, "Do you hear it breathing?" Karen froze. Days passed. Karen hadn't spoken a word since that night, not because she didn't want to, but because she couldn't. Her voice was gone, her screams, her shouting, even her simple hello had vanished into silence. No matter how hard she tried, nothing came out. And strangely, the neighborhood was peaceful again. The birds had returned. The air was calm. Even the wind felt lighter. But deep inside, Karen knew it wasn't over. Something had changed in her. She no longer blamed others. She no longer judged anyone. She simply watched. She sat on her porch for hours, just like Ethan. Quiet, thoughtful, still. And the neighbors noticed. The same people who once feared her now greeted her kindly. A few waved. Some offered food. One woman brought her flowers. No one mentioned her silence, but they all respected it. One afternoon, she saw two teenage boys across the street, laughing loudly as they tossed a football. Their music blasted from a speaker on the porch. Karen stood up and started walking toward them. The boys didn't notice. But Ethan, sitting across the street, did. He stood too. As Karen reached the boys, she raised her hand, not to yell, but to warn. She pointed to the sky, then put a finger to her lips. "Shh!" The boys looked confused. Then, the music speaker sparked, loud static, filled the air. The ball dropped from their hands. The wind changed. The birds flew away. Ethan appeared beside them. "No more noise," he said gently. The boys looked at Karen, who just nodded. They turned off the speaker. The wind stopped. Peace returned. That night, Karen couldn't sleep. She sat in bed, staring at the ceiling. Her house felt cold again, but in a different way. It wasn't fear. It was responsibility. She looked through old boxes in the attic. In one dusty trunk, she found a small leather-bound book. The name on the cover had faded, but inside were notes, written by the woman who lived in the house before her. They described the same shadows, the same silence, the same presence. At the bottom of one page was a sentence that gave Karen chills. Once it chooses you, you must protect the quiet, or it returns. The next day, Ethan came to her door for the first time in weeks. He didn't speak. He handed her a box. Inside was an old brass key. She looked at him, confused. He pointed toward the back of his house, toward the shed Karen had once broken into. Then he whispered, "Your turn," and walked away. Karen stood outside the shed that night, the key in her hand. She unlocked the chain and stepped inside. This time, it was clean. On a table lay a single item, a black notebook. She opened it. Inside were names, dozens of them, some crossed out, some underlined, and one at the very bottom was freshly written, Karen Whitley, Guardian. Karen didn't understand it all yet, but she understood this. She was no longer just a resident of the street. She was part of something older, something hidden, something sacred, and she had a role to play. The next few weeks changed her completely. She started walking the neighborhood at night, listening to the sounds. She gently warned anyone who was too loud, too careless. She became known as the Quiet Watcher. People didn't laugh at her anymore. They listened, because deep down, they felt it too, the strange force in the air. One evening, a man moved into the house next door. He had a loud car, a barking dog, and a habit of yelling on the phone. The neighborhood started to feel tense again. Karen tried to warn him. She handed him a letter. "Please respect the silence, for your own good." But he laughed. "What is this, some kind of joke?" He crumpled the note and threw it away. That night, Karen watched from her window. The street was quiet. Then the dog stopped barking. Lights in the man's house flickered, and at exactly 2:13 a.m., a dark shadow passed through his front door, without opening it. Karen didn't move. She knew better. She simply closed her eyes and listened. The wind carried a whisper, still too loud. The next morning, the man was gone. His car still in the driveway. His door wide open, but he was never seen again. And just like that, the silence returned, safe, protected, guarded, by the one who had once shouted the loudest, by the woman who now understood. Karen stood at the edge of the street one foggy morning, staring at the sidewalk cracks she used to ignore. Now she noticed everything. The stillness of the air, the faint hum that only came when someone was too loud, and the odd silence beneath her feet. She was no longer just Karen. She was now the Guardian. One afternoon, Ethan came by again. He didn't speak much. He never did. He handed Karen a folded map. It was old, the paper yellow and cracked. She unfolded it. It showed the entire neighborhood, but not how it looked today. There were hidden markings, symbols, and a circle around one spot, the center of Brookfield Street. Karen looked at him, confused. "What's here?" she asked, though her voice was now soft and weak. Ethan replied in a whisper, "The beginning, and maybe the end." That night, Karen waited until the street was asleep. She walked alone to the marked spot. It was just a patch of grass between two driveways. But something felt wrong. The grass was dry, even though it had rained. The ground buzzed faintly, like it was alive. She kneeled and placed her hand on it. Suddenly, her vision blurred. She saw images flash in her mind. A man shouting in anger, a woman crying alone, children covering their ears, a door slamming shut, then a shadow rising from the soil and feeding on the noise. Karen gasped and pulled back. She sat there for a long time, heart racing. Something was buried here, not just physically, but spiritually. The source of the silence. The thing Ethan had always protected. The thing Karen had awakened. The next day, Karen met with Ethan behind his house. They sat in silence for a while. Then she asked, "What is it really?" Ethan looked at her, eyes tired. "It's not a ghost, not a monster. It's a memory that never died. A wound in the ground, where pain echoed too long." Karen felt tears in her eyes. She knew now. This wasn't just about noise. It was about what noise carries: hate, fear, grief. The silence was a shield, and now it was her duty to keep it strong. But something was changing again. A new couple had moved in 2 houses down. They were loud, parties, music, laughing late into the night. Karen gave them a warning, just like before, but they didn't listen. That same night, the wind howled. Karen stood in her doorway, watching. The shadows returned, and once again the silence took. The next morning, the couple was gone. All their belongings were still inside. Their car, their food, but no one found them. Police came, but no one asked too many questions. They never do around Brookfield Street. Not anymore. Karen began to write in the black notebook every night. She wrote down every change she noticed. Lights flickering. Dogs barking at nothing. Static from radios. The same time every night. 2:13 a.m., always the same warning signs. She was learning, and more importantly, she was preparing, because she knew something was coming. One day, she found a letter slipped under her door. It had no name, just one sentence. "You're not the only guardian now." Her hands trembled. Who else knew? She thought of Ethan, but something told her it wasn't him. She stepped outside and saw nothing unusual, but the air felt different, like a storm was waiting just behind the sky. That evening, Karen walked past the center of the street again. This time she saw something new. A crack in the ground, very small, almost invisible, but it hadn't been there before. She knelt down and listened, and beneath the surface, she heard breathing. She stood quickly, heart racing. Whatever was buried wasn't sleeping anymore, and she had no idea how much longer the silence would hold. That night, she returned to Ethan's house, but no one answered the door. She knocked again. Still nothing. She peeked through the window. The house was empty, completely empty, like no one had ever lived there. Karen ran home. She opened the notebook. Ethan's name, once written in ink, was now faded. Vanished, like he'd been erased. She sat on her porch, gripping the notebook, watching the quiet street. She knew now she was alone. And the silence wasn't just watching, it was waiting. Karen didn't sleep that night. She sat in the living room, staring at the black notebook, the one where Ethan's name had vanished. He was gone, and now she was truly alone. Outside, the street was too quiet, not peaceful, dangerous. There was something heavy in the air, something watching. She felt it deep inside her chest, like a warning before a storm. By morning, the silence began to crack. A new family had moved in across the road, a man, a woman, and their little girl. They laughed loudly as they carried boxes into the house. The little girl rode her scooter up and down the sidewalk, giggling. Karen stood on her porch, notebook in hand. She didn't smile. She walked over slowly, her eyes on the child. The mother noticed her and smiled. "Hi, I'm Trisha. We just moved in. This is my daughter, Lila." Karen forced a nod. Then, she handed the woman a folded note. Trisha opened it. It read, "Please, keep the quiet. For your daughter's sake." Trisha laughed nervously. "Is this some kind of neighborhood rule?" Karen didn't answer. She just walked away. That night, the girls' laughter echoed through the street again. Karen waited. At 2:13 a.m., the wind changed. She stepped outside. The air buzzed with electricity, and then a scream, a high, sharp cry from the girl's house. Karen ran across the street. The front door was open. Inside, the mother stood frozen in the hallway, eyes wide with fear. "My daughter," she whispered. "She's gone." Karen didn't speak. She walked down the hallway toward the girl's bedroom. The window was open. The curtains moved in the wind. And on the floor, the little scooter lay sideways. But no Lila. Only silence. The police came. They searched everywhere. They found nothing. No footprints, no signs of struggle, just an open window and a whisper of wind. Karen watched from her porch as officers. Weeks passed. Brookfield Street was quiet again. Children laughed during the day. Neighbors waved hello. No more shadows, no more disappearances. And yet, Karen couldn't rest. She still heard it sometimes, that faint hum beneath the ground. So quiet. Almost like a whisper, like the last echo of a forgotten scream. Every evening, she sat on her porch, notebook in hand. She wrote everything she saw. Lights that flickered too long. Cats that refused to cross the street. A boy who spoke to an invisible friend near the sidewalk, crack. Little signs, small things most people ignored. But Karen didn't. She never ignored anything now. One morning, a package arrived at her doorstep. No name, just a brown box. She opened it slowly. Inside was a new notebook, fresh pages, clean cover, and one simple note, for the next guardian. Karen stared at it. Was it time? Was her job done? Later that day, she walked to the center of the street, where the crack had been. Now it was just grass again, smooth, green, perfect. But she knew the truth. It was never really gone, just sleeping, waiting, watching. She buried the old notebook there, with the key inside, a soft goodbye to the life she'd carried alone. Then she walked back home and knocked on a neighbor's door. It was Lila, the little girl who had once disappeared and returned. Her mother, Tricia, answered. "Oh, Karen, Lila was just asking about you." Karen smiled gently. "Can I talk to her?" In the living room, Lila sat on the floor drawing. Karen knelt beside her. "What are you making?" she asked softly. Lila showed her a drawing. It was the street, their street. But in the sky above it, Lila had drawn dark clouds, and beneath the ground, a shadowy shape with no eyes. Karen's blood went cold. "You've seen it?" she whispered. Lila nodded. "Sometimes. It talks to me when it's quiet." Karen gently placed the new notebook on the table beside her. "Then you need to write everything," she said. "Everything you see. Everything you feel." Lila looked up. "Like a guardian?" Karen smiled. "Exactly like that." That night, Karen packed her bags. She looked one last time at her home, her street, her quiet kingdom. It wasn't hers anymore. She had done her part, and now it was Lila's turn. As she drove away, the wind blew softly, the trees swayed, and from the center of the street, a faint hum rose again. But it was softer now, gentler, like it was at peace. For now. In the distance, Lila opened her new notebook. She wrote 4 words on the first page. "I will be ready."